Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at how to play, or this game here called Virtú, the Art of Governing. So this is a game in which you are trying to control Italy, and yeah, there's a lot of games out there like that. But what this game does is it gives you your own personal rondel, in which you're going to be moving around this rondel with a piece and picking actions. You're fighting each other, trying to control cities, taking it over with your smooth words or fierce swords. Here's how it plays. I'm not going to go over every rule in this game. I just want to give you enough of an idea of how it works. Players, and this is a very asymmetrical game, in at least in how it starts up, will have a couple of cities based on color that they control. So you can see, if I'm the red player, I have Florence and Pisa. These have numbers underneath them, 2 and 3. They may not be used in different player counts. So if you're playing a full game, maybe someone will control Rome in the middle of the table, maybe not. If you're playing a 2-player game, there's a whole separate set of rules in the game. The game is going to end when one person controls 8 cities or when every city on the board is controlled. You're going to have little troops that are moving around the board. They're going to be moving from city to city, and using boats, they'll be able to move through the oceans to any area that has a port. At the end of the game, every city will give you a point, and there are other ways to get points in the game. Right now, though, we want to take a look at the board here that players are going to be playing on. And this is kind of your whole game is focused on this. This is, in board gaming terms, is often called a rondel, because you'll have a piece here, and each turn you'll be able to move it 1 or 2 spaces clockwise, although you can pay to move it further. But what makes this one interesting is players are going to start with some cards. And you'll notice that each of these spaces has a really big icon on it. That is the action that you have. And in fact, each of the boards has these actions in a different order. And there might be more actions that you can get. You can replace one of these actions with a card. And this has an action on it. So you'll see it's the same action. But I could put it here and do that action twice in a row if I wanted to. When you place cards down, you'll notice there's icons on these cards. As at the beginning of the game, you have 3 spots on the side of the board to place cards. You can also open up more of them depending on different things that you do to have more spots to place cards. Whenever you take an action in this game, if there's an icon at the bottom of the card, or at the bottom of the action, you can use that icon to pay for that action. Actions often need icons. But if you have a card here on the side, you can also flip that card over to get this. So this one you can see gives either the crown or the mask icon, and I can use that for any of the actions, but I flip it over. Whenever your piece passes this, all the cards over here are unflipped, and whenever it passes this one, the cards on this side will be unflipped. If you put a card here, it isn't flipped when you use that action, but these icons then can only be used for that specific action. Even more than that, if you put another card underneath it, you're allowed to have 1 card underneath each one. Again, all these icons can be used to take that action, although this particular one doesn't really make any sense. Some cards, instead of icons, show money, and so you will get that money when you flip these over. Money is the only resource in the game that is not lost from turn to turn. If I'm getting crowns, I need to use that on this specific action. Now, there are cards that players can buy in between each turn. These will be set in piles next to the board. Each of these cards has a cost at the top of them, and then you will, again, be able to put them on the side here, or place them on an action, or place them underneath an action. There are some cards will give you various things. There's also a card like this, the Pope, who's also worth a victory point at the end of the game. Some cards give you crosses. Whoever has the most crosses at the end of the game will also get extra victory points. There's also tiles. These tiles come from controlling cities. These are the 2 cities that we started with. And again, these tiles can be flipped over to give you money and or icons when you take an action. As the game goes by, you'll get more and more of these tiles, which will give you that as you conquer and take over cities. You also have the opportunity to get a government, like here maybe I want a guild, or you can build cathedrals, which will also give you more tiles. This action in particular, and I want to talk a little bit about the action. So there are various actions in the game. The crown action, for every crown icon or cross icon that you use, you can unflip 2 of your tiles. So you get a lot of tiles, it's going to give you a lot of resources. This is the action that lets you get those resources back. The next action here, the patron action, that is using another board that's next to here. Each player is trying to move up this track. There are 2 tracks that you'll be moving on. One shows the number of extra cities you get, which will give you bonus points at the end of the game. And the patronage track, and you see this is basically scoring at the end of the game. This one here will give you points as you move down it, and there's a cost to moving down it. So every time you use the action, the first 2 times you have to pay 2 coins and either a crown or a cross. While the very last one, you need to pay 4 coins, 2 crowns, and a cross. But when you get to certain spots here, you get a patron, and these are not stacks of cards. You just go through here and take one of these guys. These are awesome and will give you special abilities. Some are just worth points. Some, this one here gives you an extra spot next to the board to put people. All kinds of different things that they're going to give you. There are 2 actions that let you take over cities. So we have the Annex and the Influence and Wage War, while we also have a Scheme. A Scheme is going to let you put these little masks in the cities, which will make it easier for you to take them over or harder for your opponent to take them over. Annex is just kind of using political power to take over cities. You need a certain number of crowns, and a city that's next to one of your cities, you just take it over because you've convinced them. Wage War is more using your troops to move them around the board. You'll be using both ships icons to move across oceans and regular icons, these horses here, to move across land. And then if you have enough force, you'll be able to take over a battle using your soldiers to come in and conquer that. And you can even conquer cities from another player. So those are the basic actions. There are more actions that you can get. There is an action that lets you bring in ships and you get all the stuff from your different, this merchant here. You'll be able to flip ships and get money for every ship that you flip over. And there's a few other things going on, but it's how you build this rondel and then how you play stuff on the main board that will cause you to get enough points at the end of the game to win. Virtú is very much 2 things, a thinky game and an interactive game. Now, I did mention that there is a whole extra set of rules for 2 players with other units on the board, and I think that's kind of a mess. I think I would just play 3+ players in this. But you can't go into this game thinking, why can't we all get along? You're going to want to take things that other players want. At first, you can start annexing cities and, taking them over or conquering neutral cities and so on and so forth. But at some point, you're going to want to do what other people have. There's also, at the top of the board here, there's these big alliances you can take over. The Kingdom of France, the Ottoman Empire, the Holy Roman Empire. They cost a lot of icons, but once you do that, they give you something free every turn, like maybe free tokens. There are different tokens that you can use in battle to help you fight, or free ships, or a free cross. And this is a pretty important deal to take these over, and you'll want to take them from each other. So I find it interesting. There's so much back and forth. But this here, so the rondel's in a lot of games, but usually it's not your own personal rondel. And knowing which cards to put. At first you're like, well, why would I want to put a card on an action? I'd rather have the cards off of the actions. That way I could use them for any action. But you only have 3 spots, and you're going to get more and more cards. So you're going to have to kind of maneuver things around. Do I want to take the same action more than once? Maybe I'm going to give up on conquering Italy and concentrate on getting patrons, a few cities, holding those cities, and then just working with patrons. And maybe I want to get a little bit religious and get the Pope and some other people and get the crosses. And that's a viable strategy. Or you might just go all conquering or somewhere in between. You're going to constantly need money, and it's so fun for me. I love these tiles that you have at the top of your board. You start with some tiles, you flip them over, then there's that action that unflips them, but you don't want to unflip just 2. You want to unflip all the ones you've gotten. What cities you conquer and take over, you're also going to consider that as to what icons they give you. And then what cards you buy and add to your board is interesting. So, I'm just looking at this one here. I have the Condottiere. He adds 1 thing that I can use in combat and 2 horses. So that's good if I'm going to conquer stuff. I might want the Bishop, though. All he does is add a cross. That's useful for a few actions and endgame scoring. While the Assassin gives me 1 mask, and he adds another mask to my game. I only start with 2. He adds a 3rd one, and then I can move him around easily. Gives me extra combat. The merchant helps me go out to sea. The banker here, I can just spend him to get 3 money anytime I want it. And so you have a lot of cool options. And it's kind of weird because everyone takes an action. And then there's like a downtime. First you check all the sieges on the board, people attacking cities, and then everyone has a chance to buy a card. And it seems weird to have like this downtime in between each person's turn, but it works. So, negatives, I think that the setup is kind of a pain in the neck. There's a lot of components in this game that are 2-player only, especially for some of the colors. So if you get one of those colors, you're like, what are these? Oh, these are only for the 2-player version. It's a little messy. Also, the board is smaller than it should be. I think maybe they did that so it fits in a box or something, but I think the board could have been a little bigger as you're moving around a lot of pieces on it. The rules seem to be fine. There's a very nice player aid that shows you all your actions, and it also talks about endgame scoring, so I like that that's in the game. The endgame scoring also printed here on this board. So, and I think it comes together very nicely, but it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. This is a very thinky game. There's a lot going on in it, but it's intriguing. It feels different. I think a lot of people might pass by it because this cover is not particularly compelling. It's a nice cover, but I mean, the art of governing. That's not a great tagline, I think, that people want to play with. But this is certainly one worth checking out. I kind of went into it like, let's see how it works, and came out very pleasantly surprised. I give it an 8 out of 10. But again, that's going to take there's a lot going on. You're going to be at each other's throats. There's moving pieces and stuff. But if you put forth the effort, I think you'll enjoy it. I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.